Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, I am the CHALL, and welcome to another NBA post-game review. Today is on the Wizards and the Celtics. The Celtics win, and they have won quite convincingly. But the fourth quarter was ropey. There was some ropey moments in there. Now, before we get started, please make sure you like, comment, subscribe, click the notification bell to this YouTube video. Also, guys, make sure you follow the socials at the bottom of your screen and in the description down below as well. So, going into this game, in terms of the build-up stats for this game, the Wizards had some mixed form. It's been decent. They've won 6 of the last 9. But they're hoping to snap a 2-game skid after falling short against the Heat in a 110-107 loss on the road on Friday. Now, as a team, the Wizards shot 43% from the field and 11 of 39 from the three-point line as they came out swinging into an early lead, but then got next to no support from the bench, which cost them in a close contest. And this is why that particular point, the bench sort of gave them no support, or next to no support, plays into this game a bit. Now, the Boston Celtics have been in absolute red-hot form, fire form, winning 11 of their last 12 overall, aiming to make it a third straight victory after making light work of the Kings in a 122-104 win on Friday. Now, the team shot 49% from the field and 16 of 37 from the three-point line, with 36 points in the first quarter to open a big lead in the Kings game. When the Kings cut that lead, as they held the Kings to just 42 points in the second half to make it look an easy ending. Now, obviously, Celtics, I mean, the big story with them was no Tatum, no problem. They didn't need Jason Tatum in this game. He was out for this game, but they didn't even need him. It was literally the Late Late Show with Jaylen Brown. He was exceptional in that game. I think overall Marcus Smart doesn't back down. You know, one thing I noticed, especially from Marcus Smart on a consistent basis, was these kind of sort of step backs, turn, fade away. These kind of movements, these kind of real pressure plays. And I think Marcus Smart is someone who I've noticed who seems to be really good under pressure. If he's been man-marked, he will still manage to get a shot off, or he will still manage to get the play off. And the play is the most beautiful thing in basketball, and the most beautiful version of it came from the Boston Celtics. The way they move the ball around the court and the way they get a man open and the way they it's very much attacking possession. It was very much attacking possession. It wasn't a great night for the defenses because both teams ended up on 100+ points, but the Boston Celtics had very much attacking possession. It was very much move the ball around, find the men open with quick passages of play. And the Celtics absolutely took advantage of that. And the way they moved the ball around was just beautiful to watch. The Wizards, for me, was a weird one. The Wizards were, to be fair, even though the Wizards were in decent form, I think I knew the Wizards were going to struggle today, or previous evening, because of the fact the Celtics have such a really good team, and they're on really red-hot form at the moment. It seems like nothing's going to stop them at the moment. Do I believe the Celtics are probably the favourites to win the NBA title this year? Absolutely. I'd say they are one of at least maybe 2 or 3 teams that are in contention to win. I'd say probably the Celtics are the favourite at the moment. Obviously, that could change during the regular season where certain things happen, but we will see. Now, in that first quarter, I think Derek White was someone who I picked out specifically. He had outrageous shooting in that first quarter. Definitely showed what he could do. Now, there was a moment in the first quarter where Porzingis was not backing down from Marcus Smart, but Smart was not giving him a single bit of room to breathe. You know, it had to take a full-on shove to get Smart out of the way for Porzingis to try and go for the 2. And again, like I said, Marcus Smart, a player that doesn't back down under pressure. And Porzingis is an interesting story. Why was he on the bench longer than he was in that fourth quarter? We're sort of jumping between quarters here when it comes to different moments, but in terms of specific players that jump between quarters, why was he on the bench longer than he was in the fourth quarter when the third quarter was where it started to get a bit sloppy, a bit ropey. Celtics looked shaky at the back. That was the Wizards' opportunity. And again, the bench showed next to no support to the starters. And it looked like an easier end than it would have been. So, again, that's something the Wizards have got to work on. They've got to go back to the drawing board. They've got to keep working on that. Getting their bench to work just as good as the starters. Because the starters, for me, showed something at least, but the bench there was little to no support in that sort of third and fourth quarter, or most of that fourth quarter. And to be fair, the Celtics even played it safe. You know, there was a few fans questioning why, but they were playing it safe. They were bringing some of their starters back on the court in the fourth quarter to see out the game. They brought Horford back, they brought Smart back, and they brought Jaylen Brown back in, and then Jaylen Brown went off again. So they had to bring them back in to actually make the play safe, make the game safe and see out the game, because the Wizards weren't taking advantage, but the lead had been cut down. So the Celtics needed to get that back up. And that's the thing on the Celtics, what are the bench players doing wrong to warrant the starters being brought back in the fourth quarter when it should be a see out, to basically see out the rest of the game. It was questionable. It was questionable it was questionable because why did the Celtics let that lead get cut in the first place? Because the play was ropey, the play was shaky, it was sloppy. And me personally, I think that it should have been better. It should have been better in that quarter. But moving back into the first quarter, there was a particular sort of moment where Barton, instead of passing to a wide open Jill at the top of the key, he drives and gets it sent by two defenders. Just that, I like a bit of selfishness in players. I like them to sort of be wanting to take it on themselves. But I think when you've got men open in space, you've got to pass. You've got to pass in those moments, because those are the kind of plays that need to be countered, and you need to make that count. So there's a bit of selfishness when not needed for me with Barton, but that will only come in time. That will only come with time and progression. So for me personally, I think just that lack of selfishness in decent areas of space, I think would be key for people like Will Barton and for the Wizards in general. Now, in terms of overall, I mean, the bench got a strong run. There was a really deep squad with the Celtics from that first quarter, but like I said, the bench sort of made it look sloppy in the third quarter, and the first team sort of needed to come back on a bit more in the fourth quarter to sort of see the game out, which, I think Mazzulla will probably be having words with the bench. I think Mazzulla ball is brilliant to watch, by the way, but I think he'll have some words with that bench about letting that lead get cut, and I'm sure they'll rectify it for their next game. Going into the second quarter, the Celtics offense seems to be flowing brilliantly. In the first quarter, they shot 53.6% as a team, which is fantastic stats. The bench was just as good as the starters, Cornet and Pritchard. Now, Peyton Pritchard was someone that was pointed out in the commentary as well. He looks a good rotational player at the moment, and looks good. I think he's got potential there. And Luke Cornet as well. I think he showed what he can do on certain moments in the game as well. So I think Cornet and Pritchard could be two really good rotational players for the Celtics to come in. It just takes consistency. It just takes time. Now, the Celtics became an absolute juggernaut in the second quarter. With 9+ minutes to play in the second quarter, they were up to 46 points, 55% from the floor. Really good stats. And like I said, just the style of play from the Celtics was just beautiful to watch. In the third quarter, Jaylen Brown absolutely owned it. He absolutely owned that quarter. Cornet was pretty good. And to be fair, someone said it on social media, it's probably fine to keep him in the rotation as a third big when Rob comes back. And there's no need to go after another big. And I agree with that. I don't think the Celtics need to go for another big, because you've got Luke Cornet there, ready and waiting. So I don't think the Celtics need to go for another big star. I don't think they need to go for another big player. the Celtics team had 113 points through 3 quarters without its leading goal scorer, who averages 31 points per game. That's insane. The way the Celtics offense was moving about, it was insane. It's a good example of how scoring is one of the most replaceable things in the NBA. And you know what? I completely agree with that. Now, don't mistake raw production with impact, especially during scoring. But scoring is one of the most replaceable things in the NBA, but you need a good defensive line, and I think the Celtics have defended well in that game. There was moments of lapses in concentration. Like I said, so, towards the end of the third quarter into the fourth quarter, it was getting very sloppy from the Celtics, and that cut the lead. There is still defensive mistakes being made, however, I think that will come in time. They've got the offense sorted, it's just defense they need to sort out, because they can't concede 100 plus points like that against a Wizards team who didn't take advantage of the sloppy play by the Celtics towards the end of the third and into the fourth. And again, I'll question it. Why was Porzingis on the bench longer than he was in that fourth quarter? I do not know. Speaking of the fourth quarter, going into that fourth quarter, like I said, it was getting sloppy. Smart and Brown went back. Wizards came back, only trailing by 12 with 5 minutes 47 left on the clock. The bench started to stop scoring, so they brought in Smart and Brown to close the game. And like I said, it's embarrassing. It was embarrassing for the bench, who had a good game until that fourth quarter, and the fourth quarter just came out a completely different team. The Wizards just took advantage, but they didn't take advantage more, because in my opinion they should have had Porzingis back on the court for me, because I think they would have cut the lead by a lot more than what it was. Now, Jaylen Brown, and this is the big thing with me with Jaylen Brown, if Jaylen Brown can improve his free throw percentage, for me, he could be at least a 50 guy. I think he could be at least a 50 plus guy for me. I think that that's the one thing with me that Brown needs to work on. That's his free throw percentage, and I've noticed that. And you've got a really good player there. He just needs to keep improving in that free throw percentage. There are certain moments where his positioning needs a little bit of work, but for me, I think he ran the show. He absolutely ran the show for most of that game. Now, there was a very aggressive Washington team in that fourth quarter with the fouling, and not one, the whistle has been blown. So the Wizards have lived on the free throw line almost 5 minutes with no baskets, which is questionable. Blowing a 20-point lead all in the fourth quarter, shall we say. Now, Cornet threw down a putback jam, ending an almost 5-minute scoring drought for the Celtics. That's for a team like that with the Celtics offense, it was embarrassing to watch. But they got back into the swing of it towards the end of the fourth quarter and just closed the game out. Now, one thing that I did want to keep an eye on was Brown was grimacing and flexing out his right shoulder. And that's something to keep, and I think the journalist mentioned it as well, something to keep an eye on. As Brown twigged something in his right shoulder, I do not know, but we will keep an eye on that, I'm sure. Now, they scored 120 plus points in 7 straight home games, the Celtics. It's their longest such streak in more than 50 years, which was 7 straight from the 28th of January 1972 to the 11th of February 1972. That was their longest 7 straight win streak, or straight home game streak, with 120 plus points. So could the Celtics break that in their next game? It'll be interesting to see. Now, like I said, I've already questioned it. Why was Porzingis on the bench longer than for that long in the fourth quarter? With 2:02 left on the clock, Brown was done for the night, finished with 36 points on 13-23 shooting. Now, this is an interesting stat for you to end the video. 16 NBA teams not named the Celtics entered tonight with a winning record. Boston has now played 8 of them and has gone 8-2 during those games. That, for me, is an element of what makes a championship team. That, for me, is an element of what makes a championship team. So overall, then, the Wizards didn't take advantage of the sloppy fourth quarter before they brought on the starters again, the Celtics, and saw the game out. I think the Wizards will go out to the drawing board. Look, they were in decent form going into this game, but there needs to be some stuff worked on. I think the lack of unselfishness in open, wide areas needs improving. I think the defensive structure needs improving, especially when you're conceding about 17 offensive rebounds to 7. In the first quarter or two, it was embarrassing. And look at I think it was the Mavericks that I said conceded about 17 offensive rebounds. It was embarrassing. But it just showed what the Celtics could do if given the opportunity. So, for me personally, I think the Wizards do need to get back to the drawing board with the lack of selfishness in the wide open plays. I think positioning needs a bit of work as well. I think getting the right areas needs a bit of work as well, but that's also due to the Celtics man marking and the way they guard the players. But overall, I think the Celtics did a good job, and they saw the game out in the end. But just that fourth quarter, just that needs working on. Can't get sloppy in these games because a team can just cut a lead like that. So needs a bit. It needs work. But the Celtics look a very good team, and I think I won't be surprised if they were one of the favourites to win the title this year. So thank you very much, guys, for watching this video. Make sure you do like, comment, subscribe, and for now, I am the CHALL. Ta-ra for now.